If you know the military is a system that millions and millions of black men and women enter right after high school, and you know shaving is a part of that mandatory system, and you know this condition, pseudofolliculitis barbae, it affects a significant number of us genetically and biologically. Why aren't you preparing people, your sons, for what you know is coming? You know shaving comes with the job. You are quick to get a profile, but not quick to give a lesson. And it's a sad state because you want to fault racism because it feels good, but it's not the Army's fault. That's your culture's fault. The culture should own it, but we know the culture ain't going to own nothing. Racism is not always the reason. Sometimes it's the result of walking into a system unprepared because that system that raised you didn't prepare you for anything. I don't fault the system for being a system. I fault the community for not showing up when it mattered the most. All right, what's going on, y'all? I'm gonna try to get this out. I'm stretching right now. Get ready to go on my run. This is Instructor Mike. All right, so let's talk about it. So I've been seeing this beard debate in the Army. Some of y'all probably cut your beard. Some of you all didn't. Let's have a conversation around this. So there's been a post that's been circulating, and some of y'all might have seen it. A master sergeant in the United States Army, he made a post telling soldiers not to cut their beards, supposedly because the policy requiring shaving has already, gone back in effect? I don't know. That Monday has already passed. Let me be clear. Y'all probably heard me talk about it before. I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm not saying he's right. But what I am saying is this. Before you go making a decision based on what someone else said, please, please, please take this into consideration. Make sure that you are pulling from a toolbox that is full. What do I mean? A full decision toolbox. Because today's decision that you make, it could affect you for a long time. We're talking about your personal professional toolbox. Look, it's nothing to follow somebody into a casket they're not going to share with you. And there are no bunk beds in caskets. Now, as a person who studied death, not just physical death, but career death, reputation death, whatever the case may be, two people could be shot in the same spot, and one person may survive while the other person bleeds out. Everybody's got Kool-Aid, different flavors, but just because they drink it, that don't mean you should too. Now, I've seen him switch positions, right?
Do not cut your beards with y'all scare ass. When it comes to this shame profile and this new policy, you got to make a personal decision on your own. You can't just follow Master on Parker. You got to evaluate your own. You got to make a personal decision on your own. You got to make a personal decision on your own. On your own.
Let me add one more tool in that toolbox for you. I was in the military. I was in the Army. The Army didn't fail me. My community did. So I'm going to tell you a story. Let's travel back to when I was in Germany. So I had been going to the Soldier of the Month boards, company, battalion, brigade, whatever. And the next day was my board for the sergeant. Now, I'd already been through boards. So what were they going to ask me that I didn't already know? I was already confident. I was ready. But there was one thing I forgot to do. Didn't get a haircut. And so I did what I could. I pulled out some clippers, the ones you get at the PX, did the best I could, but I didn't get the balding clippers, right? Didn't have them, so I did something funny. I got some Nair. Y'all don't say shit. Not a word, but I got some Nair, and I got that baby smooth, right? So when I walked in, knocked on the door, reported, Sergeant Major, First Sergeant. My first sergeant was a white man, and he looked at me and he smiled. He almost laughed, and he was like, boy, your head is too shiny. You're going to pay for that in a couple of days. I'm not going to fault you, but I know what you're trying to do. I know what you did. You got that Nair, didn't you? And everybody laughed, right? And so I didn't feel offended by it. It wasn't the kind of laugh that made me feel small. It was a shared knowing laugh, right? This wasn't new to him. He had seen this happen plenty of times before. And that's when my first sergeant said something to me that stuck with me. He asked me, you don't have anybody to teach you about your skin, do you? And I didn't get offended. I mean, it was what it was. I mean, first sergeant was good, relationship-wise with all the troops. So I said no. And he didn't hold it against me. He said, look, you're squared away, uniform sharp, knowledge is tight. Sergeant Major agreed. He was like, there's nothing else we can ask you that we know you don't already know, and we're not going to waste time with you, stuff like that. This conversation is just to help everybody else get out there and get ready. So he said, sing the First Army Division song, the Army song, give a salute, and be out, right? 149 out of 150. And my sergeant knew that was going to be the result because he was like, what they going to ask you don't already know? You'd have been in front of them multiple times at the company, battalion, brigade level, whatever. But the lesson still holds true. Now, what's the lesson? That wasn't racism. It was a reality check. See, here's the real problem. Black boys are not being taught about their skin. Not at the house, not in school, not in the barbershop anymore. 9 times out of 10, you got the moms accompanying their sons to the barbershop. So we know how that conversation is going. And to be fair, it's not the recruiter's job to teach you about your skin. Their job is just to use what they know about your situation. Poverty, broken home, no plan, no way at the community or in the community. And their job is to try to get you a way out, to get you in the army. You mad at the army? No. You should be mad at the absence of the elders, mad at the missing uncles, mad at the curriculum that cut family and consumer sciences, mad at the community that failed to prepare you from age 0 to 18. Because that's who's supposed to teach you. That's who's supposed to teach you how to take care of your skin. That's who's supposed to say, look, if you go to the military, here's how to shave. Here's how to eat. Here's what clogs your pores. Here's how to prevent those bumps. And I fault other people for not doing what they're supposed to do. You know that black boys are going to continue to go into the military. You know that. It's time to teach what they were never taught. It's time to teach what we were never taught. It's time for us to be what we never had. So let me give you that lesson, right? Because e pluribus unum, out of many people who may have something bad to say about it, one person is going to learn from it. This skin condition is called pseudofolliculitis barbae, and it's been punishing black men since day one, since a razor has been required. Long before it had a name, it had a consequence. Let me ask you something that might sting a little bit. If you know the military is a system that millions and millions of black men and women enter right after high school, and you know shaving is a part of that mandatory system, and you know this condition, pseudofolliculitis barbae, it affects a significant number of us genetically and biologically, why aren't you preparing people, your sons, for what you know is coming? You know shaving comes with the job. You are quick to get a profile, but not quick to give a lesson. Now, if we look at the dermatological science and holistic health research, here's the truth. Diet and lifestyle have a massive impact on your skin, especially for black men dealing with shaving-related conditions like pseudofolliculitis barbae. Diet, skin, health, those things are deeply connected. Some of y'all have been watching me for a long time. You know I'm a vegetarian. And when I became a vegetarian, I noticed improvements in my skin. That's not a coincidence. Here's why. Inflammatory foods like processed meats, dairies, refined sugars, these things can cause systemic inflammation. Okay? Makes your skin more reactive to when the razor touches you, right? Poor diet, it weakens your skin barrier function. You can get irritated, infected. Do we eat nutrient-rich diets? Come on now, look at all the fat shit that we eat with the soul food. We don't eat stuff that protects our skin, right? Y'all make fun of white folks about they need to have skin protection and suntan lotion, but we don't even take care of our skin. Plus the stress in the environment that we're in, right? There's a book called The Body Keeps the Score. And the skin is one of the first scorecards. Chronic stress increases cortisol. What does that do? It disrupts your skin healing process. It triggers inflammation when the razor touches your skin, right? You get bumps, things like that. We don't talk about those things. The poverty, the violence, the overwork, the reducing of philaudia, self-care, all of those things affect our skin. Bad diet, poor sleep, underhydration, alcohol, caffeine, overuse, systemic stress, and pressure to look sharp even when we don't feel well. You got all these shea butter specialists that's selling all these shea butters and oil salespersons, all these woke folk. They're great with health and understanding the African body. Where are they to teach our boys? Where are the old black veterans, the ones who've lived this, the ones who got the scars from the razors, the one who's got flagged over grooming standards, the one who knows what pseudofolliculitis barbae actually feels like after PT and formation under pressure? Where are those men who can say, yeah, I went through that. Let me tell you what I wish I knew. All these veterans that been in and nobody did any research. Come on now, that's part of the problem. In our community, we're not reaching back to teach. Why aren't people pulling those young folks aside and saying, look, here's what you're signing up for. The skin condition, this is what you might develop. Here's what daily shaving looks like. Here's how to grow your hair back. Here's how your hair will grow back. Here's what happens if you don't follow that order. You quick on a 4856, right? But you're not quick to teach them a lesson. If you decide to get into the military, this is what you're going to go into. But don't compromise your health and your peace for the military. If you don't want these problems, if you don't think it's racism, look, before you sign that dotted line, let me explain to you what you're signing your skin into. So what is this really about? This isn't about bumps. This isn't about anything else but blocks of missing knowledge. Other communities, they show up for their people. They got military legacies. They have briefings at the dinner table. They have culture elders who show up to prepare the youth. But what do black boys have? We got recruiters with pizza, TikTok uniforms and benefits, pressure from poverty and promises of purpose. But these black boys don't have protection. Not that kind of protection that comes down from knowledge passed down. You didn't shit it on the baby daddy, but you don't have anybody to replace that man. The before you sign uncles, the don't just be proud, be prepared mentors, the this is how they really treated us when we stopped being useful OGs. Where are the barbershop conversations that teach instead of just complain? Where are the panel discussions in community career centers and not just in VA halls? What happens when we don't have it? The boys enlist without wisdom. They come home without guidance, and the cycle just repeats. Intergenerational transmission of just ignorance. And you want to call it racism? It's not that. It's a wisdom access issue. It's a community structure failure issue. This is a generational handoff that never happened. And some of you are talking about a shaving profile like this is racism. This is why other communities are laughing. You may not see it, and they don't post a video about it, but they write it in books because they know you're not going to read it. And they're laughing. Why? Because this is not racism. This is called the absence of career counseling. This is called the absence of occupational literacy. When you got women out here saying you don't need your daddy, well, what? Who's going to replace that man? You don't shave. Well, you might shave that thing down there, but you get it. Where are the ones in the barbershops? Why aren't you taking him to the barbershop and having him learn about his face and his hair? Come on now. They're in the prisons. They're in the prisons. You can sit there and visit and get with, but you don't want to visit the prison. Why? You don't want your son to get that institutional knowledge. Is it really racism, or are you so thirsty for the opportunity to get away and get that government money that you sign in contracts you're not reading? The military service has long been normalized and even honored as a career path for many black communities and many black people, particularly in working class and lower income areas where economic opportunity, it's not necessarily there as much, right? You don't promote college, so what do you get? Job security, healthcare benefits, educational fundings through the GI Bill, escape from unsafe neighborhoods, structured environment, and travel, family tradition, and honor. This is a pattern that's reinforced generationally, especially in areas and in other areas where upward mobility is structured or even restricted. So if you're still in, consider what I'm about to advise you. Consider what I'm about to advise you. Lastly, I got to get my stretch on, I got to run. I should be done. Will the person who's giving me this advice share in the consequences of what happens to me if I do it? What does that mean? Is that master sergeant going to deposit money in your bank account if you get flagged? Are they going to set you up for reviews and job interviews for you if you get pushed out or denied a clearance? I don't know if that's going to happen, but you get what I'm saying, right? Is he going to fill your refrigerator if the decision that you make affects your household? See, a percentage of us are out here taking serious advice from people who have zero obligation to help you recover if it backfires. Now, I don't know the exact statistic, but I know it's enough to warrant this message. That's a hell of a dangerous game to play. Let me give you some examples. I gotta hurry to hell up. I need to get this run on. We close at 7. Let's go deeper. When you talk about protests, there's people who've done these protests. And when you try to do this, especially in uniform on TikTok, look, the system don't forget. The system does not forget. You've heard me say this before. Systems are not just what's on paper. Systems are people too. That social media comment that you made, the board may see it. That beard you didn't shave, that's going to sit in your record. That arrest that you thought didn't matter because you weren't convicted, yeah, you weren't found guilty, but you were processed, and it's still a record. See, if you don't understand how systems work, because you're not a systems analyst, no one's taught you about that, you don't know how long they hold on to information on paper in their mind, and you'll keep thinking you're making small decisions when really you're building your own paper trail. Look, let me add to this because I want you to know where I'm coming from. As an epistemologist, I study the nature of knowledge, belief, and how people come to know what they think they know. So trust me when I say this. I know a lot about questioning authority and even rebellion, but rebellion still has to make sense. It has to be grounded. And most of all, it has to be timely. There's a time, place, and manner for everything. Because if you rebel without a strategy, that's not courage, that's carelessness. That is just outright carelessness. And can you afford that? Now, you riding for somebody else's principle, but at the end of the day, this is your life. A lot of folks out here are riding for this beard policy. Can you look? Can that person do anything for you if things go south? Will they speak for you at the promotion board? Will they help you when you get reassigned? Will they feed your kids? Will they help you in that divorce? Here's the real question. Is the person who hyped you up to rebel also willing to help you recover your losses? If the answer is no, that's not leadership. That's reckless influence. I'm gonna give you some examples. And I'll say give me 15 minutes, but this stuff is too important. You think just because there's no punishment today, there won't be any at all? Nah. Sometimes that payback is long and it won't show up for years. But when it does show up, it's still payback. Let me give you a few examples. Some names you might know. You know, people have been in situations to prove this point. Remember Colin Kaepernick? What did he do? He got that NFL silent payback. Took a knee in 2016 to protest police brutality. What was the payback? Yeah, they changed their position. He was never officially blacklisted, but no team would sign him afterward despite the league's public support of anti-racism. What's the lesson in that? Just because the consequence wasn't immediate or on paper doesn't mean it didn't happen. Systems have memory. People have memory. Decision makers may smile at you in the public, but freeze you out in private. Remember this? Angel Reese, WNBA and branding. What did she do? She taunted Caitlin Clark with the "you can't see me" gesture. What was the systemic payback? Delayed draft pick, less favorable media narrative, unequal branding versus Clark. What's the lesson there? Systems don't punish you formally. They'll draft you later, spotlight you less, and give your peers better endorsements. Payback by quiet deflation. Remember Janet Jackson, the wardrobe malfunction? No fines, no public punishment, but MTV and major outlets ghosted her. Meanwhile, Justin Timberlake's career soared, sold out. Monique called out Netflix and Hollywood for gender and race pay gaps. Wasn't fired, just stopped getting work. Now that punishment wasn't loud, but it was quiet and long lasting. Angel Reese did the same trash talking, right? She went to Chicago. You saw the differences. They welcomed Caitlin Clark. Her, not so much. Rebucks, be lucky if they sell like what she wants. She wasn't fired. They weren't fired, but they were forgotten, delayed, mocked, sidelined. You see what I'm saying? See, the system don't have to fire you. They don't have to fire you. They don't have to lay you off. They could just stop choosing you. Don't cry racism after you signed that contract. You rose your right hand and you swore to protect this country against all enemies, foreign and domestic, bearing true faith and allegiance to the same. And for crying out loud, you going to fight wars overseas wearing a uniform with pride, but they can't even tell you. You don't even know what the war is actually about, what treaties are in play, what oil reserves are being protected, what foreign policy doctrine you're upholding, or even how the enemies are defined. You're taught to just obey orders. You're calling out oppression, but you're walking in blind. You walked in for the benefits. You walked in for the bonus. You walked in for the stability and maybe even for the escape. But let's be real. If you didn't question what the mission was beforehand, don't act surprised when the system treats you like a weapon, not a person. This isn't about patriotism. It's about preparation. Because what you call racism might just be the logical function of a machine you've never stopped to understand. All right, let me get up out of here. This is Instructor Mike. You've been trained. I got to go run. Look, do what you want to do, right or wrong, whatever. It's your life, it's your face, it's your beard. But if you're the soldier or a professional or of any kind and you're being told to take a stand or hold the line, just ask yourself the question, does the person giving me this advice have the power to protect me from what might happen if I follow it? And if they don't let their principle become your penalty. Because when it comes down to it, the promotion you want, the clearance you want, the clearance that you need, the transition you're preparing for, that master sergeant's name is not going to be on your eval. Yours is. This is Instructor Mike. You've been trained. Let me get out of here. Bye.